Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Visit our website, whoknewpodcast.com, or email us at whoknewpodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter and on Facebook at Who Knew Podcast. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/whoknewpodcast. Today's episode is episode 10 of season 3, Blink.
It's perfect. Okay, moving on. When the future becomes the present.
Don't blink. Don't even blink. Blink and you're dead. This episode is written by Stephen Moffat, directed by Harry MacDonald, and it originally aired on the 9th of June, 2007. It was originally watched by 6.1 million viewers. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hi, this is Frank Shipton. I mean, just Frank. Just Frank. Don't look at me.
This is Josh.
Hello, this is Auburn.
Hi, this is Kelsey, and short disclaimer, I do not watch scary movies or TV shows.
Hi, this is Brian.
This is Arlene.
Sally Sparrow enters an old abandoned house on a stormy night. She begins taking pictures when she notices writing behind some torn wallpaper. She tears at the paper and reveals the word beware. She continues tearing down the paper to reveal a message addressed to her from someone called the Doctor, telling her to beware of the weeping angel and to duck. Now, as she does, a rock hurtles through the window at the place her head was seconds ago. She turns to see who threw the rock, but only sees a statue of a weeping angel.
It was a dark and stormy night.
It was a great opening to this episode. And I love that they actually have the rain. So many shows hide the rain. All the actors are underneath covers, and so they're filming at night because they're under the night scene. And the rain is in the background, you can see. So it's like pouring, but nobody's wet because they're hiding the rain. And this, they're just embrace it.
I think this was on purpose because it's a story point later.
Did you mention this is a Dr. Light episode?
Not yet, but
Okay.
you just did.
Oh, okay.
And it does feel more like a movie the way it's shot.
Well, and as we go further into this episode, the frighteningness of it and the scariness of it is very cinematic. It's not, whiz bang, light and effects and graphics. It's very in the camera, like, wow, very real, very scary.
And it's not shot for commercial placement. They have the different scenes, and then they're going to cut to a commercial. So either there's a cliffhanger kind of thing or something happens. And this one is shown in Britain together, but here in America, there's always going to be commercials placed. And so they kind of have a little lull when you're going to go to a commercial. This doesn't feel like it has it. It's like it is shot as one piece.
But I liked earlier when she was revealing behind the wallpaper how it kind of got through it all quickly, and it was just the right amount of information that was weird. And how did that sequence end? Did there was a knock at the door, or
Not yet.
She just gets
Just the rock gets thrown. Or
The rock- oh,
yeah,
that's
she looks
right.
and she
Because
sees
it's
the
broken
weeping
in two,
angel.
so it's like pottery.
So who do we think threw the rock or
The angel.
Football?
The angel.
Stephen Moffat confirmed that the weeping angel is what threw the rock.
I guess I don't understand why.
Don't think about it too much.
Okay.
That's the thing.
They trying to knock her out so she doesn't see.
This is one of the things that's fantastic. Don't go too into it.
Gotcha.
Because this teaser is, you get to the end of this teaser, you have no idea where this episode is going
Right.
to go.
In fact, rewatch. I've seen this episode a number of times, but I hadn't seen it in a while, and even I was like,
What the what?
yeah, like I couldn't quite remember exactly how she finds out this,
Yeah.
that, and the other. I've totally forgot about her roommate, which is pretty much the plot of the show.
It's
But it
not
is-
a roommate.
Oh, her friend. Sorry.
They're not roommates?
No.
No.
She just showed up at
She
her
has a
friend's
key
house?
because
Isn't that weird?
They're close.
They're just besties.
Yeah.
she's calling her and she goes, I'm
Yeah.
not coming over to your place at 1 o'clock in the morning. She goes, no, I'm in the kitchen. Come on down. And that's when she said, oh, my brother's here. Have you met him? No, you're about to.
Okay.
The next day, she returns to the house with her friend Kathy Nightingale. She shows Kathy the writing and the weeping angel, which seems to be closer to the house. The doorbell rings, and while Kathy hides, Sally answers the door. A man has a letter for Sally Sparrow to be delivered at this precise date and time. Kathy hears a noise behind her, but sees nothing, and goes back to watching Sally and the man, unaware that the weeping angel has moved closer to her. The man tells Sally that the letter was sent by Kathy Nightingale. She asks if this is a joke and calls for Kathy, but she is nowhere to be found. He tells her that the letter was written by his grandmother who passed away 20 years ago and insists that she take it. In the letter, Kathy explains that she was somehow transported in time to 1920 and has lived a full life. Sally searches the house and finds more weeping angels, one of which has a key. She takes the key and hears the front door close. She races after the man, unaware of how close the angels have gotten to her.
So this is where you can't think too much about it, because why would the angel have the key? Like just dangling there.
No.
But just dangling there for her to find it.
No, because it didn't have it just there dangling for her to find it. They had it.
So you have an explanation for that, but not the other thing?
Yeah. Because they just had it and they happened to freeze in that moment. But we don't know that yet in the show.
I just think they're smarter than that, and they
They
wouldn't
don't
do
have
that.
pockets.
Exactly. Angels don't have pockets.
Put it like this. And I'm cupping my hands for those of you who can't tell.
Why would they?
All the angel had to do was clench its fist, and you wouldn't be able to get it out of the
Same
stone. But
difference.
But the angel was starting to, but
No, I know.
was
I'm on your
frozen
side.
beforehand.
To me, it's like it's good. It's fine.
And that's when there turned out to be more than one angel. Before now, it's
Sure.
only been one. Now you see the other. So,
And
one of
I'm
them
just
had the
saying that
key.
that's something that came up, but I just brush it away. I don't think too much about it. But I also wanted to point out there is a continuity difference between the writing on the wallpaper. So I'm passing around screenshots of when
Passing around a printout.
of when Sally first is in the cold open, and then when she brings Kathy to see the writing. It's the placement is different, but that's only on repeated viewings that I notice.
Don't you dare point out an imperfection of this episode.
I always
It's
thought that
different.
was shot first with the fresh writing.
Mm-hmm.
Then they put the wallpaper on so that she could tear it off. And I think it just tore off some of the actual writing and some stayed behind on the wall. Because at the first part, you couldn't see it was 1969. It was 1960.
Yeah, it was
some-
Then at the end, it was like really bold.
Mm-hmm.
1969. This is the year right here. I like how Kathy was calling them Sparrow and Nightingale, thinking that those two names made a great sounding
And they
business.
do. I think they do.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was cool. And also, love the line about Sally saying that she loves the old house. It makes her sad. And Kathy, well, what's good about sad? And, well, it's happy for deep people.
It's a mantra I live my life by.
Sad is happy for deep people. I didn't catch
Yeah.
that.
I love that.
I love that.
And it's also
awesome. It's true.
because it is looking at the house and what, potentially went on there. You
What's
know,
it
Basically,
that house?
nostalgia. Nostalgia is happy for sad people.
right.
I like that that in this scene we get that piece of character information from her that Sally loves old things and because they make her sad. I don't know if I myself love old things because they make me sad, but I also am someone that loves old things. I like looking at old photographs. You go to like the flea markets and there's always that booth that has the box of just old photographs that they just picked up from like what?
Just the
These
estate
people
sale.
have lives. You don't know who these
Estate
people
sales.
are, but they all had lives and
And
history.
then you see
and-
one picture that is you.
Yeah, had to go there, didn't you?
Thanks.
There's no pictures of you in the box, Josh.
No, because I'm a vampire.
Okay, so I think at this point we're kind of beginning to catch on that this might be a Dr. Light episode because we're like through the first act and we still haven't seen them.
We've heard of the Doctor, we just haven't seen him.
He was
Right.
on like 17 screens.
Yeah. Well, what else?
But not yet.
Oh, not
No, at
yet?
the beginning when
she
goes over to
into-
Kathy's apartment.
Yep.
Oh, that's right. But so it's kind of like, oh, this is a Dr. Light episode. So this is an episode that they're not going to spend as much money on. I still love the fact that they went out onto location and hired an actor to be Kathy's future husband. And we see the scene of them meeting. Because if you think about it, we don't need that sequence at all. We can just read about it in the letter when she's reading the letter. This is Sally's story. It's not Kathy's story, right? So we're being told things from Sally's point of view, but we still get Kathy's point of view of being dumped back in 1920 and meeting this guy going, no, it's whole.
Why do you keep
and-
saying whole?
it's whole. And then, that little scene of following. And then it gives an emotional attachment to the letter, to the photographs, and it makes you feel better for Kathy, realizing, well, we've seen this guy and he's pretty cool. And she had a happy life with him. And I actually, we haven't, I don't know if we're going to talk about it in the summary, but when she goes and puts flowers on Kathy's grave, I looked at the thing and I'm like, wow, he died 25 years before she did. And I literally got a little sad for Kathy. She spent all that time without him just because I saw this one guy sitting on a fence for a brief moment in a scene that didn't need to be there. I love that they spent the money for that and did it.
And the way that they cut it too, they intercut it. So we're learning what happened to Kathy at the same time as Sally's learning what happened to Kathy.
Right.
And the way that they intercut the two scenes, past and present, makes a big impact as well to us. And I agree with you, Brian. I love that scene. And what a shame if they didn't have
What
it.
a shame it would have been. I also love the read that the actress does of the letter.
Yes, her read is
Her
great.
read is really, you
feel it.
You totally feel it. And just enough, too. It's not
Yeah.
sappy or anything, but she's just, you can hear her when she's happy. You can hear her when she's sad.
And I think the assurance she's trying to give Sally is what really gets me because
Yeah.
it's like, don't worry about me, I'm fine. I had a good
okay.
life.
Yeah.
Also, the cinematography of that scene was great with him over by the bench of the tree, just walking down the hill.
With the wide shot you're talking about?
Yeah.
So it was a little more, cinematic rather than a television.
What I think makes this episode being so Dr. Light, but it's also a good example of the show, is it's scenes like that make you feel things like usually the Doctor does. So there's all these elements of the usual shows that are being put in through either the characters or the writing or the editing.
I don't know if you caught it, but this is the first female director, I believe, in the modern series.
I was going to ask.
Yeah, this is the first episode to be directed by a woman after 22 years.
Oh, wow.
The previous one was The Mark of the Rani.
And what about the cinematographer? I mean... I'm just curious.
Hold on.
I'm sorry, but have you seen The Mark of the Rani? Maybe there's a reason they didn't go back to a woman for 22 years. Don't hate me.
So Blink, the cinematographer, is Ernest Vincennes, and he's the one that likes to use the green and the reds.
So he is someone that's
A regular.
a regular.
Moffat mentions on the commentary that he visited the set of the house in the opening sequence. So, yeah, I think he took his son to visit that set. I thought that was fun.
Well, he's not usually on set.
He's a writer. He's not. They don't need to be on set.
We don't let writers out.
That's true.
Or editors.
I know Stephen Moffat wrote this one. Is this the first one of the new series that he's written, or has he written other ones?
The Doctor Dances and The Empty Child are the first ones.
Okay. And he goes on to become the showrunner when?
Season 6.
Season 6,
With
which
Matt
is
Smith.
Okay.
This is season 5. Season 5.
Well, if you count the specials of
Yeah,
the season, but
so
if you
it's-
don't, then season 5.
Yeah, season 5.
Which is Matt Smith
With
and
Matt Smith.
our introduction to Amy Pond as well.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, that's interesting,
Just placing
because-
in context
Yes.
where all this happens.
Moffat also wrote Girl in the Fireplace, right?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Oh,
So it's-
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
He does one every season.
In this sequence, before we move on, I also want to just talk a little bit when Kathy is being killed by the angel. That whole sequence where we're kind of seeing Kathy's point of view from one side of the door, behind the door. We're also seeing the angel creeping closer. There's also a mirror in that room that will continue to be there. Like, we go to this mirror shot a lot. I just really liked it because it moved the perspective around a lot with the camera angles and the editing. But I felt like I always knew where I was in geometry to like everybody else, which can be really difficult when you're playing with so many different directions of points of view, but you always knew where your main characters were and also where that angel was like creeping from outside to behind the door and everything.
That's very good because this is a new location to us as the viewer. We've never been to this house, where if this was shot, let's say, in the TARDIS console, we'd know exactly the geography of that console.
Plus, it is very dark. Interesting that you would say that, though, because Frank and I were talking last night.
And you didn't like that sequence?
No, I love that sequence.
Okay.
But I always thought the room was upstairs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I'm totally wrong.
The first
Completely,
time I watched it, yes, I did too, and then repeated viewings, yeah.
Now there is a
Downstairs.
moment. There's a moment after when she's looking for Kathy that she runs upstairs. But it's after she looks in the room. But for some reason, my brain never caught on to. I just always thought it, and it was like if somebody had said to me, I'm like, well, she runs upstairs to find Kathy, but Kathy's not there. But that isn't the room. And Frank was like, well, yeah, the garden's not going to be outside a second story. And it's like, huh,
Interesting.
yeah, okay. And now all of a sudden, it just kind of like all clicked into place.
Interesting.
Was that because in the cold open we see Sally walk around the house for
Yeah,
a while
I think so.
and she goes upstairs?
Yes,
and
I think it
she-
is.
But
Can't
in the
just-
opening sequence or whenever, when we first see her in there, there's a lot of time cuts.
Right.
That's what-
Jumping
jump
around
cuts.
stuff.
And it is that Kathy is in the room, so she can't directly see the front door. It's through the mirror, right?
Right.
Okay.
What I want to know is, did Kathy tell her grandson what was in the letter, or is he just like fulfilling her last rites or her last wishes?
I want to know why she told him to, when you deliver the letter, deliver it in the most creepy fashion and really make it spooky and scare the dickens out of her because I was told to give it to you.
Again, it's all about the atmosphere, not the details that you...
I wanted him to be like, "Oh, you're here. I guess I lost the bet."
Right, from Back to the Future.
It's like they're both scared.
Yeah.
And so his delivery is scary to her.
Yeah.
But he's also freaked out so
Yes.
I would
Yeah. I think it's acting towards the tone of the
Yes.
piece.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I almost think maybe he was totally expecting nobody to be here. Like he's like, I guess I'm gonna do what I told my grandma. I made a promise. I'm gonna go do it. And he knocks on the door, and she's there.
Yeah.
Like he's probably really freaked.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, this actually is something happening. So, but there should be another episode from his point of view.
Talk about tone. I loved the ending of this scene where the angels are looking out the window.
I do too.
Oh, yeah.
That's such a great
Yeah.
tone of freakiness.
Yes,
you know?
so freaky. The scene in the attic, or I call it the attic.
Second story.
with all
Yeah,
three
too.
angels, and then the fourth one appears at the window. So I guess I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
No, it's good. And did you guys notice, like, when Sally, there's a shot where you can see all 4 angels. The one with the key is in the foreground. Maybe you can only see 3. You see the one in the window, the 4th one, and then a 3rd one. And then as Sally moves past the 2nd angel, it
it changes.
changes.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And there's also, you see a shadow behind Sally's head.
Oh, does it really? I
Yeah,
didn't
that's what
notice
we were
that.
saying. You know, she doesn't realize how close, because an angel is actually reaching for her as she walks out.
I did notice that.
So I think here where we see the angels in the window, it really made me think that the ratio of fun on set to scariness in the final product was probably, this is probably one of like the highest episodes of that ratio, just because I think it would be so fun to be on set with all of these angel, like, I don't know if they were mannequins or if they were actors portraying.
Part of them were people in wardrobe. They did a special treatment to the fabric to make it look like it wasn't flowing.
Okay. But I just think it would be so much fun to be there with all these people pretending probably to be as still as possible, you know, and then to see what the final product is on screen is so much scarier than I'm sure it was on set. Because if you think about it, you're shooting windows with like these mannequins like things in the windows. Like it's pretty silly to like pan up. Oh, there's one. Pan over. Oh, there's another one. But in the actual like
And the
product,
cameraman's going,
yeah, yes. But the actual product, it
works.
definitely works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so they weren't props. They were people.
Sometimes.
They were actors.
Some of them were.
Ones
and
where
the,
they
real,
kept-
the
That's
makeup's really good,
crazy.
isn't it?
Well,
That is
the
crazy.
faces were probably masks, and then,
Yeah.
you know, it was probably actors when they had to keep changing poses and stuff like that.
We haven't talked about the sound design, but the sound design really adds to the tone of this creepy factor going through. Like you get that sound of it sounds like bugs.
But it's Psycho music. I get a Psycho reference. Yeah, the Angels theme is really, really relentless.
In the letter, Kathy asks Sally to tell her brother Larry what has happened. Sally goes to the DVD store where he works, and Larry is in the back watching a DVD containing an Easter egg video of the doctor. It contains only the doctor's half of a conversation. This same Easter egg is on 17 totally unrelated DVDs. Larry has been trying to figure out the other half of the conversation and has written down the doctor's portion. He leaves to get her a copy of the list of DVDs, and the video begins again. Sally makes a comment, and the doctor answers. She says it is like he can hear her, and the doctor replies that he can hear her. She freaks and pauses the DVD as Larry returns with the list.
I gotta say, I also like the guy who's watching the shop up front.
He's like, stop, wait.
And it's literally just a guy or a woman walking into a door.
Yeah.
He needs to see the person
Yes.
walk into a door.
And he's like, okay, what do you need? It's so typical of what you think of. Like the Simpsons comic book guy, this is a video store rental guy.
And kids, video rental stores are where people used to go to rent their
What year was
movies.
this episode?
2007.
2007.
Yeah.
Still some around, but it was obvious that store was kind of a used.
Yeah.
Specialty.
Specialty store, yeah.
It does explain how come there are so many TVs in Kathy's apartment. You know, Larry
Right.
working there. It's like, why does she have so many different screens to watch all the different versions of the Doctor on this? It always bugged me.
It always made me jealous.
That place. So I'm thinking anybody who turns in their VCRs or DVDs to get fixed, he's taken home to watch all these different, 17 different DVDs.
It's the perks of working at a rental store.
And I really liked how Sally had, when they met again, Larry's, do I know you? She goes, it's going to come to you. Just wait.
Yeah.
And then he gets the embarrassment of being naked in front of her in Kathy's apartment.
I like how Sally kind of like, you get the impression that Sally in an ordinary life on an ordinary day would be very confident.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, she looks at the gravestone of Kathy and says, You lied about your age, you cow. I mean, she's very secure. And so it's nice to see a character like that being thrown off by these weird doctor-related stuff.
Well, what's great about her, too, is from the frame one of the show, she's always figuring something out. She's never thrown by what's happening.
Yeah, and she's not necessarily completely accepting everything that's going on,
Right.
but she's curious enough to figure out.
She's overly rational,
Yeah.
but she knows something's up.
Yes,
But it's
and she is the person that goes into empty,
Houses.
haunted-looking houses in
Yes.
the middle of a storm.
Right.
And that same guy at the beginning, the register,
Yes.
is just talking to the TV, saying, "You stupid woman, why don't you go to the police? Why do they never go to the police?" And that's what Sally
Right.
hears, going, "Yeah, that's my next place." It's like, I love that little going, "Yeah, that is good advice" idea, that little interchange.
Well, not only is that a little device to get her to go do that, but it's also this motif of talking to the TV in the whole episode.
Right.
Oh, that's a good
Right.
point. Also, this is our first wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey.
That's right. They're like a Rory and Amy precursor.
I was gonna say that.
Sally decides to go to the police, and while at the station, she sees two weeping angels on a building across the street. She blinks, and the statues are no longer there. Detective Billy Shipton says Kathy is not the first to go missing at the house. He shows her a parking lot of cars that were abandoned at the house over the last 2 years, with no further trace of the owners. Among the cars is an old, locked blue police box. Billy asks her out, but Sally says no. Still, she gives him her phone number and leaves. He turns around to see a group of weeping angels surrounding the TARDIS. As he looks over one of the angels, he blinks. Billy, because you're hot and life is short.
I'm like, oh, that would have gotten me right away.
I know. I just turned to Frank and I'm like, sorry, I'd be dating him.
Maybe that's why I'm
Hot
single,
life
because
is
when he
short.
said that, I was like, oh my God.
No, they're like, but you have
the
to be
delivery.
very cute to say
Alright.
it too.
Yes, that could be very creepy.
Obvious
but
much.
Billy delivers it freaking perfectly.
Yeah, I'd be like, okay, we're
his
going for a
accent.
drink, right?
Yeah, because it is like if you said. Cause
So
you
if I said it like,
let's not. You went.
It's light and
because
fun.
Let's do
life
this
is
in the
short
episode.
and you're hot. That's not sexy at all.
You got your work cut out.
This is gonna be
Work
fun
cut
stuff.
out. Work cut out. I see what you did there.
Because he comes. Okay, let's just say it. Because for me at least, he comes across as yes, he does say something that could potentially be creepy, but it's not in his delivery because you also get if she flat out said no, okay,
Moving on.
he's moving on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's not gonna like stalk her.
No, I get
You
it.
know.
It's just...
But yeah.
The scene where Sally is looking out the window as it's raining and sees the two angels on the opposite side of the street. I remember my nephew showing this to him, and he was like, "They're gone. Where'd they go?" And to see that reaction and I guess enthusiasm and just like wonder in somebody seeing that for the first time is really fun.
How old was he when he saw that?
At the time, he was probably 8 or 9.
Uh-huh. That was the first time we saw in the show the slow motion zoom.
Yeah, to
when
me
someone-
that's a bit heavy-handed.
Into the eye?
I think you needed it in that moment. I think if it was too casual.
I was gonna say, I think you needed it because when Billy blinks, you know what's coming.
Yeah, I think you're right, Kelsey.
Zoom in.
Yeah,
That,
you
there.
need it
You're
because
like
then
this.
when the camera slowly zooms in on Billy, you're thinking, "Don't blink, don't blink."
I don't mind the zoom. I mind the slow blink. I wish it zoomed in and we're zooming in slow motion, and then it's like, and it's taking me a second and a half to close my eyelids.
You know, I liked it because it's for the dense people who really don't pay attention.
It's
yeah,
that.
that's true too.
And I feel that it's the whole, oh.
Yeah, you know what? Because if it was just a regular blink, people would just think it was a zoom.
It's also for kids.
It's for
Yeah,
kids,
the
spelling it
kids.
out for kids. It also is in conjunction with that's how slow time moves for the angels.
This was also the moment that I noticed with Sally. Sally is wearing a long brown coat and a long multicolored scarf tied close around her neck and dangling down.
Yep.
They are making her the doctor.
At the beginning, her seeing the old house and just the idea of who lived there, what their lives were like, what the potential was like. And then here, don't look at me, it kind of parallels the angels. And
Well, it's interesting because she likes old things, and then she gets this bunch of photos, which are these old photos of this old person's life. And then what happens a few scenes later is another old person.
Sugar daddies.
I just realized that the house is empty because the angels killed the owners.
The angels have been there
Yep.
a long time.
because they say that all the cars show up.
Oh, that's right. All the cars
all-
show up, so they've been killing people. They've been feeding feeding off their time,
2 years.
which we
Right.
find out later. I just spoiled it.
Stephen Moffat does mention in the commentary that in his version of this world that he's written, that missing people are people who have slept near the weeping angels. You know, you see missing child posters and things. They ran away and then they slept near a weeping angel and they got taken.
I noticed on Shipton's jacket, Billy's jacket, he had a patch
yeah.
that looked like a sparrow to me.
Oh, that's cool.
It was a bird. It was like, oh, it's like a sparrow there. Well, don't sparrow have a meaning in?
That's a dove.
Sparrow's also
God
there.
keeps his eye on a sparrow.
I thought sparrow, nightingale. I
I
thought
thought that's
those were.
Beretta.
I thought so too.
What?
Keep an eye on the sparrow.
That's probably what they're saying for the song. But he has a cockatoo Beretta, doesn't he? Why would he keep his eye on the sparrow?
It's in Matthew 5.
That's funny.
Oh, Josh, we're showing
Was
our age.
Beretta's cockatoo named Matthew?
It's the fifth Matthew. All right, moving on.
Because he's right. There is a bird motif going on.
Yes.
They don't call Larry. He's called Lawrence at one point. Lawrence Nightingale. Florence
Wow.
Nightingale.
Lawrence.
Okay.
The nurse.
Yeah. Is there another Florence Nightingale?
In the Sermon on the Mount, people use sparrow as the description for if God could keep taking watch over like the smallest of creatures, like the most humblest, like sparrows are not something that people are prized possessions or like pigeons to us, then how can God not watch over you? So that's the whole idea that if the God's eyes on a sparrow, God's watching over me as well.
Oh, eyes watching. There you go.
Yep.
Oh, there.
So a sparrow is an ordinary bird.
There it is.
There's
It's
ordinary
ordinary
there.
people, yeah, ordinary. So it's
Sally is
definitely
an
it's using.
Sally is an ordinary person. Thank you.
Thank you for all the biblical references.
I like it.
This has been God Talk, Gabbing with God. Billy is transported to 1969, where he is found by Martha and the doctor. The weeping angels zap people back in time and feed off the potential energy of what would have been. The doctor says they are all stuck there without his TARDIS. He tells Billy to give Sally a message, but it will take decades until he can deliver it. In the present, Sally receives a phone call from Billy asking her to come visit him in the hospital.
I like that she remembered right away. You know, she's putting her hands in her pocket and then finds the key. And remember, Billy said it's just a plain lock, but they can't get into it. So she runs back just, a minute later, and Billy's already gone, and the angels are gone, and the TARDIS is gone. You know, she just runs back. What just happened? And then she gets the phone call. Well, okay, Billy, where are you? You're in the hospital. What? You know, for her point of view.
No
it's
time
just-
has passed.
Yeah, it's been a minute or so.
No, this is a great just time travel episode in general.
I like the quick throwaway line that the doctor says to Billy, "You were touched by the same angel that we were, which is why you're in the same year." But Kathy was jumped back to 1920.
Oh.
So it's like, isn't it lucky Billy got zapped to the same place as the
So it
Dr.
was the
Martha?
same angel,
And
that's the thinking?
yes, so the throwaway line was he was touched by the same angel, the CBS television series.
Yes.
And so that angel has the same amount of power to throw you back. So it's like, okay,
Or like the same setting.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good rationalization.
So each angel has a certain time
Yes.
Time
and that,
potency, maybe?
that also
time
helps.
frequency. I like that. This also shows that the Doctor and Martha have gone on a lot more
Yes.
adventures because
I
they've been to
love-
the
I always
moon
love that.
landing 4 times and seen 4 different points of
Yeah,
view.
they like refer to probably a dozen different things in this episode. It really gives you a sense that Martha's more of a in-depth companion than we've seen screen time.
And they've done it with the Doctor and Rose also.
Right.
So we do see that there are more adventures than
Than
just what's
screen
I
time.
really like
Yeah.
when they do that.
I do too.
Billy makes a reference to the police box, and he's like, but the windows are wrong.
Yes, he
and,
does.
And then so that goes to the reference that the TARDIS for every doctor is different.
Mm-hmm.
It's just always changing, even though it's supposed to be the same thing.
Billy is now an old man who is dying. He gives her the doctor's message to look at the list. Billy says that in 1969, he went into publishing and then video publishing. He put the Easter egg on those 17 DVDs. And asks if she knows what they have in common. The doctor told him that the night he gives Sally the message is the night that he will die. The thought of seeing her again has given him the strength to hold on this long, but now it's his time. She sits with him until the end. I love this scene.
Yeah, it was-
That's that line. I have until the rain stops. Oh,
and then it cuts to the rain that stopped, and you think he may be in the bed,
Yeah.
but it was really he's already out of the bed.
Yep.
Just a lot of time cuts, and
Yes.
jump cuts where
And that's cinematic.
Yeah, it's shot really nice, and I like when editing makes the viewer think.
Well, that scene, to me, it says the filmmakers, but the showmakers, the people, the production guys, are saying that the audience is intelligent. And so we can show them this space and let them fill in the gap.
Right. Maybe it's a coincidence that there is stuff happening inside of time that we don't see, just like the angels moving. How did they know what DVDs Sally has?
Wait till the end.
Yes.
Yeah, it's out the end.
It's explained later.
No, but
Yes.
It's explained later.
all right.
Yes, explain later.
I'm just so sad that Billy never knew what the correlation was, why he had to put the Easter egg on those particular 17 DVDs. And he's okay with it. He's come to terms with the doctor telling him, you're never going to know what the correlation is. You just need to put it on these. I still feel sorry for him not being able to know.
He could, but timey-wimey, he didn't, so he couldn't know. The doctor couldn't tell him because Billy didn't know.
Still sad.
It is still sad, yeah.
But I love how they follow their own rules on time travel, which
Yes.
many shows do not. And it made me super excited that they were able to wrap everything up in this wonderful circular, timey-wimey, combobulated weirdness of time travel. And I just loved it. Loved it.
This episode must have been a bear to write.
Yeah.
I don't know how he wrote this and to make it work out so well. I mean, every scene has its own.
Like purpose.
Yes, but like every scene refers to things that haven't happened yet or happened earlier on, and now we're getting the answer to a question we didn't even know was a question. I mean, it's just, this is written so very well.
It's interesting too that now here's another person from the past giving her a message, just like the grandson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I love the callback. I am old and you are hot.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
Time is long,
yeah.
is long.
or life is long, and you are hot.
That actor is so good. That actor is
Both.
just so good.
Both.
Both actors are so good at
No, I
playing
know.
the same
Like Sally
person.
throughout the whole thing, but this gentleman has
No, the
Both
two.
Billies.
Both
both
Billies.
Billies.
Yes.
Yeah, both Billies. Yeah,
It's almost like, there's only one. Wait,
No,
I'm
there's
not
two.
into it so much.
yeah, me too. And
Origin-
Billy has a type.
Originally, they were going to put younger Billy in old
I'm
makeup.
glad they did.
And
Oh,
I'm
I'm
so
glad they didn't do
glad
that.
that they picked somebody who had like the experience of
Yeah.
acting to act, old and deliver this with such conviction.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about acting, we should bring up that the girl who plays Sally is Carrie Mulligan, the Oscar winner. She won, right?
She did
She
win
is an
something for
award
this
winner.
Right.
role.
No,
No.
For this role?
What?
she might have won for this, but she won an
BAFTA.
Oscar.
So Carrie Mulligan received the Constellation Award for Best Female Performance in a 2007 science fiction television episode. Well, that's for this episode. Yeah. She was nominated for an Oscar in her performance in Uneducation. The BAFTA she won for Uneducation.
Okay. Yeah, I think in the U.S. she's played roles opposite like Ryan Gosling in Drive, right?
Yeah.
That was her.
And then Shia LaBeouf in the Wall Street sequel.
All right.
And then she dated Shia LaBeouf for a while.
Oh dear.
Oh.
Another Doctor Who connection, she was in Never Let Me Go with Andrew Garfield. And Keira Knightley was also in that movie. That's an interesting movie. Not a lot of people like it. I enjoy it. And then since we brought up Billy earlier, young Billy is played by Michael O'Byrne, and older Billy is played by Louis Mahoney, and he has appeared in Frontier in Space with the Third Doctor and Planet of Evil with the Fourth Doctor.
That's nice. I like when they bring back actors from the
Classic series, yeah.
One thing, also while we're talking about this scene, that I just realized just thinking back about it is the starkness of the casting, and that might go to like the monetary aspects of the episode, but like at the hospital we don't see nurses, we don't see any extras. At the
Yeah.
police station there's
There aren't
there's
any.
another detective she talks
It
to.
probably has to do with something like with being a Dr. Light episode. They didn't have
Right.
money for all those
but it
people.
feels
Didn't need 'em.
No, it definitely adds to
uses
the
it
mood.
to add to the mood and to like allow the story and the characters that we do know to really shine. But I just didn't realize till now, like, wow, there's like nobody else but people who have lines. Like even at the video store, the guy is like pivotal with like go to the police station, like, and he could have just been a throwaway character.
I mean, this could be coincidental, but I think it allows us to focus on what's going on. Like the emotions are so powerful, we
Yeah.
don't need background extras to remind us we're in a hospital, we're in a
No,
police station.
I like it, and
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
if it was for budget reasons, then
It
they
worked.
embraced it.
Wouldn't
Yes.
be as creepy. Wouldn't be as
Yeah.
spooky.
Oh, that's also a good thing. It's to that horror factor. Like
You're
you're
alone.
alone. That's it. Nobody can help you.
There is a big motif of looking at things that represent people, like looking at the statues, looking at photography, looking at video. This whole episode is filled with that.
Yeah, we look at like the mirror even.
In the mirror,
looking
yeah.
at things, but not looking at them, looking at representations of, or
Then,
through filters.
Reading the what he wrote down later on, we'll find out in the list. It's all about looking at, the whole episode revolves around looking at things, not just the angels.
Later, Sally realizes that the list contains only the DVDs that she owns. She calls Larry to bring a DVD player and meet at the old house. Larry brought 2 discs with him. He puts one in the machine and slips the other into his sweatshirt pocket. Watching it on a laptop, Sally begins a conversation with the recorded doctor while Larry writes down her part. The doctor has a future copy of the transcript Larry is currently writing, but is now stuck in the past. The angels have the blue box. They are assassins that, when seen, turn to stone as a defense. They are very fast and can remove you from time in the blink of an eye. They are after the TARDIS so they can live forever. She needs to send the TARDIS back to the doctor. He tells her that is where the transcript ends, which means the angels are coming for Sally.
I think that's the most brilliant thing I've ever seen on TV.
Yeah.
No, that whole scene is brilliant.
Yeah, that scene
one
is
of the
amazing.
best scenes in the whole series.
And
Oh, yeah.
And it's also great how that scene also works with the earlier scene, but
Yes.
it's a different conversation.
Yeah.
That's great.
And I love, look to the left. Never understood that part. I think it's a political statement.
Political statement. It should be a mantra.
The angels have the blue box. I got a T-shirt with that on it.
We're looking at T-shirts right now, if you can't tell.
I know they took liberties for the drama of the scene, but there is a point where he stops writing and she's still talking.
He writes shorthand, so he wrote it
true.
really quick.
Okay.
The shorthand he's writing is known as Pitman, and Pitman is the shorthand reportedly used in the movie version of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and it's a stand-in for the written language of Vogon.
Oh, really?
That's a nice little tidbit.
Little meta kind of sci-fi referencey thing.
I like that they did reference that he was writing shorthand because when they pan over, I looked at it. I was like, oh, that's shorthand.
Yeah.
Yeah, me
And
too.
I'm like, how does he know shorthand?
Just a throwaway line.
Yeah.
But I think that was kind of the start, or maybe not the start, but at least that added to Sally's like being impressed with him. At least that's how I took her line.
He's
and
smarter
you know,
than-
shorthand, like
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
saying there was more depth to his character than she saw. Because I mean, she's still getting over Billy, I guess, but didn't take too long.
I love this remark. You only have 17 DVDs?
Yeah.
Yes.
A guy that works in a DVD store would say something like that.
I would say something like that.
Again, they have an enemy or monster who is as old as the universe. So that's another theme for this whole Martha season of being a little more for kids, and then these enemies. I mean, even even that one with the Arachnos and the witches from Shakespeare and this, and there was the
Macra.
gridlock.
Macra.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the macra.
This season seems to be doing with a lot of old beings. Entities.
Beginning of time entities.
They're cool, but it's like they're from the beginning of time. Then where did they send people back to before
Yeah,
time?
how did they start?
It was a rough beginning. It was a lot of famine.
Yesterday.
Being someone who doesn't do well with scary. Like I stay away from. I've never seen any of the Scream movies. I've seen clips, and that's enough for me. You know, this was the first Doctor Who television show that this is the first Doctor Who episode that made me scream out loud. Like the first and only time until recently that I watched this episode, I probably watched it with my eyes closed.
See, I always had a kind of sort of the opposite. Like if I'm watching like a Nightmare on Elm Street, when they're walking around the furnace room and they don't know where he is, I'm terrified.
Yeah.
The instant he jumps out and you can see him, I'm like, okay, I'm good. You can fight him because I know where you are.
I mean, to kill you by letting you live to death is a
That's
unique
a great line.
touch. And I think it's great to have this character, this villain that is of the abstract. But then the potential's still there because Kathy lived her whole life. And so did Billy. They lived a whole life. They got married. They had other kids that would not have been there if they didn't go back. So it's just one of those, by feeding, are you then allowing yourself to feed more because now those people have a whole different potential?
But it was supposed to be because Kathy would have never disappeared if her grandchild would have never knocked on the door. So, like, this is all stuff that was supposed to happen.
Right.
It's not like
That's-
they're changing history.
Yeah.
This is just what history does.
Yeah, and this is what history has been and will be.
Right.
And it's just time isn't linear the way we think it is.
They're not creating new timelines. They're actually, it's all within that.
Which
But
could
it
be
is
why
still
cat-
it's still a quantum notion though, because it is still like Schrodinger's cat. You know, is the cat alive or dead? Well, we don't know until something happens. The angels, are they alive or are they stone? Well, if someone's looking at them, they're stone. Not looking at it, they're nothing. The person lives out their normal life, and that's their potential. And the angels rob them of that potential by throwing them into the past.
That's
when
why I
you're-
love this episode
Yes.
so much.
It's so good.
Did Kathy say, no, look for a picture? Sally needs to have identification because that's the time she needs to look and find out where the angel is to get her.
Why didn't
It's
Yeah,
there's
Kathy
a,
actually sets up the stalling.
Say that
argument
again?
could be made
What do you mean?
that when Kathy wrote the letter, she told her grandson to ask for identification.
What she doesn't need to do, because Kathy already knows that is going to be Sally opening the door.
Right.
But she says, ask for identification to prove that that's really Sally, because she needs time for the angel to get to her and throw her back in time.
Oh.
Kathy could also remember going, oh yeah, I also heard him say I need identification, so I need to tell him to
right.
look for identification.
It makes me wonder if the angels are actually doing what they're supposed to do, and they're not bad guys. Now that we're discussing it,
They look
That's
scary.
just how they eat.
yeah,
Yeah,
That's
they're
how they
just feeding.
survive.
Yeah.
Why do they have sharp teeth if they don't actually eat anyone?
Potential energy is rough.
Don't judge them. That's how they were drawn.
It's because they're just ugly.
Okay.
That's what happens when you're born near the beginning of the universe.
You
You've
got
got
sharp
the
teeth.
sharp teeth.
And as we'll later find out, at the end
At
of the
the end of
universe.
It's a circle.
That's right.
It makes me think that there's a menu like, oh, Kathy Nightingale, Billy Shipton. Which one will I have today?
Both she and Larry turn to see a snarling angel only a few feet from them. The angels have locked them inside the house, so Larry keeps his eye on one angel while Sally looks for a way out. Larry turns his head for a second, and the angel is now inches from him. He backs out of the room and meets Sally in the cellar. The weeping angels have moved the TARDIS to the cellar, and Sally and Larry make their way to the TARDIS door. All four angels surround them and cause the lights to flicker. Every time they flicker, the angels inch closer. Sally and Larry barely make it into the TARDIS.
Best use of darkness.
Yeah. It's really great how they're mostly Sally, but both of them are figuring everything out as it happens. They're not dumb Scooby-Dooey, like, I don't get what's going on. Why let's go in that room. Like, everything makes sense. They're figuring it all out. And so every piece of a scene is leading us to the next piece.
I watched this episode with someone who's never seen Doctor Who before. And she looks over to me as this is all happening. She's like, I really want to blink, but I'm scared.
That's when you remember to wink and wink.
Yeah.
They go back and forth between your eyes.
Yeah, why didn't they just do that? That would have...
That's funny you mentioned that because Moffat goes, yeah, that's the answer that people give me, but you tried doing that in a moment of stress and you can't do it.
Yes, I wondered about that too. Cover it and blink.
So like covering one eye would make you want to blink both eyes.
Yes.
But I love the lighting in this scene from the beginning all the way to when they somehow manipulate the light to go off. But close up on Larry's face, his eyes, the pupil, is so big, so it's got to be low light, but that makes him look so
Terrified.
intense and
Yeah.
terrified.
I wonder how many takes it had to do with him not blinking at all during those scenes.
Because when you tell me not to blink, all I want to do is blink.
Yeah.
Like, that's really hard to, like, not blink.
They never explain what they're doing to the light.
No, they
I wish
don't.
they did, but that's one of those you just got to go with it
Accept
because
it,
it's
yeah.
Don't
part of the
think-
feel and the
Yeah.
theme of it.
Oh, Kelsey, you missed one of your favorite lines.
Yeah, she goes down in the basement, right? And then Larry can't stay in the room alone anymore, so he backs out slowly and then runs down. And then after they switch paths, she turns around and there's your one saying like, "There's the
taking care of
angel
these
from
three."
upstairs." Yeah.
I think what's funny here is that you have the usual horror movie trope of either going down into the basement where there's no exit or going upstairs where there's no exit. But this time, because the TARDIS is in there, it makes it acceptable.
But she had a great reason for going down into the cellar. They've locked the front door
No,
and
no.
back door, and in the old houses, they would have another
Right.
way to get out.
No, and I understand that, but I'm just saying it's a typical horror trope that where this one makes it acceptable that they go down into the basement. A hologram of the Doctor appears and recognizes that the disc that Larry is carrying contains coordinates for one journey. While the angels try to break into the TARDIS, Sally and Larry place the disc in a slot and the TARDIS disappears, leaving them huddled on the floor of the cellar. With the TARDIS gone, the angels are in each other's line of sight, turning themselves into stone.
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing about like this scene in conjunction with the earlier scene. Like these two scenes is like the only thing for years that I remembered about this episode. You know, like to rewatching it for the first time in like 5 years for this podcast, I was like, oh, I didn't remember this. I didn't remember this.
Your eyes were closed.
Well, because of the just how scary these two moments are. That's all I remembered from this episode.
There was a critical plot point that they needed to do, and that was they needed to bring the disc into the TARDIS.
Right.
And they could do that so much where it's like, why are they holding on to this disc? But he's explaining, which I think a lot of us kind of geeks would, is, well, this disc has better sound. Well, this disc has a better video. This one's, we would do that. And so we would bring multiple discs just to go, well, which one did you want to watch? Once you put the disc in, the one that had the better audio, the other disc he just put into his sweatshirt, which a lot of times you wouldn't think anything of. It was just, what do you do with it? You just put it in.
There's
But
a
that's the only
reason why
he
the disc
had
is there.
It
This
needed to
is-
get into the TARDIS, and I think they
With the
really
disc.
did it well with
In this sequence, like with the strobing of the angels moving in closer is really good. But I really like the TARDIS getting rocked back and forth. Like that's really cool. Not so much the inside, but the outside,
Yeah.
like the continuing of the strobe and the
Yeah, yeah.
angels going like to the right and to the left. Like that's just really neat. Like I think that shot was excellently executed.
And I also got a real thrill out of them going into the TARDIS. No one's inviting them in. No one told them to go in. They go in. They're a little taken by that it's bigger on the inside. They don't have time to talk about it. It's just... But for people who are fans, it carries a lot of stuff with it. When you do go into the TARDIS, you're carrying a lot of all your knowledge of that with it, and it has a lot more to it.
You're talking about terrifying moments. The first time you watch this and the TARDIS is disappearing and they're not
Yeah,
going.
they're not going. Yeah.
Which I don't know if we've ever seen that before. We haven't in the modern show, but it's like you're leaving them. But how can you be leaving them? And now that's terrifying.
Yes.
And then, it's like when you think about it later, it's like, yes, he has to leave them behind so that we can wrap the circle up. They can't go back to 1969 and then the doctor, it's like she has to wonder and write everything down and all that kind of stuff. And that scene when they're like in the center of the room huddled by the console and the angel just starts appearing like right over them, wibbly wobbly. I mean, it's just it's just so terrifying. It's creepy.
I do have the impression, until just recently, rewatching it confirmed the impression, but this episode leaves you the impression that our main characters, Sally and Larry, were on their own. Like, yes, the
Yeah.
doctor talks to them through a pre-recorded thing, but they're on their own, and the TARDIS leaves them. And I think that the moment that you're talking about, Brian, is what left that impression on me that, like, no, in this episode, the doctor doesn't come in like he does at the end of Love and Monsters. Like, the doctor saves them by tricking the monsters, but they're left on their own, and like this whole episode they're on their own.
On repeat viewing, one thing bugs me just a bit, not hugely. They both huddle and look down. It's like after all they've just been through, no, look at
Yeah.
the angels. But I can also understand just the terror of it.
Yeah.
It's like, they've given up at that point.
But also when you're huddled down at the end and you see that the angels are stoned because they're caught in each other's sight line, don't stand up
Yeah,
and block
and block.
an angel's
Yeah.
view.
That's what Albert said.
I thought that as well.
You're
Yeah.
not
Right.
supposed to analyze why the actress is running upstairs when there's no escape upstairs.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just scary, right? Like,
Yeah.
One thing reminded me in Buffy about the judge. And the doctor said that you can't kill a stone. And the idea from Buffy was, well, that was then and this is now. And so
that's right, when she's got
demolish.
she's got the bazooka.
Yes. It's like, well, now we can just really demolish stone really well. We have
Wasn't
all
like,
these,
no weapon-
jackhammer and all this kind of
No
stuff.
weapon
we get to.
forged can destroy me because
Right.
it's stone. And she's just like, we've progressed.
So just like, yeah, we should destroy those angels now.
We also have our sister-in-law, I guess. She has this a figurine it's maybe like 7-8 inches tall, but it's 4 angels in a circle,
There's like 6.
touching
At the end.
hands.
You put a candle in the center and it's all really nice looking. But
Oh, it's
And
not from the show. It's
No,
Oh.
and it is the most terrifying.
It's so
I
creepy.
don't even want to be in the same room when she's got it out, and it's like I can't tell her, but I'm just too freaked out.
And they are looking like stone.
Yes, they are.
Kind of a raw stone look. It's really a nice piece.
Yeah. And
But
it's
it's just the way we look at it is you have a raw stone angels in a circle.
Well, our niece was sitting next to it and was like, look to your left. Oh! 1 year later, Sally owns a DVD store with Larry, but she cannot stop wondering how the doctor knew so much. She compiles all the information she has into a folder. The list of 17 DVDs, the transcripts, pictures, everything. As she looks out the window, she sees the doctor and Martha arrive in a taxi on their way to battle some creature. She stops them, but they have no memory of what happened because it is still in their future. Sally realizes that the doctor got all his information from her. She hands him the folder and tells him to keep it with him. He will need it someday. Now that that mystery is solved, she can focus on other things, like Larry.
And the list of the DVDs is in that packet.
Right. So, but it's a new list that she wrote, or the list that she got.
The list that she got.
But who
Does it
wrote
matter?
that? Where did it? Yeah, because it had to, in some time and space, it had to have
But
been
it's
written.
circular.
But it had to have been
He
written.
wrote it.
That's
wrote
cause
it?
and effect.
Larry.
You're talking cause and effect.
When did Larry write it?
When he saw that all those 17
He created that list.
Oh, he created that
videos
list
had
during
the-
his detective work.
Yes.
Yeah, before they met and went on this adventure, he found this Easter eggs on these certain
And only
17
these
titles.
Okay, and,
17.
and since the doctor had that list, he knew which discs to put the Easter egg
To tell
on.
Billy
Yes.
to put it on.
So nowhere in time and space had anyone made a point to look at Sally's DVD shelf.
No. Sally only got it when she read it
Right.
and realized, oh, they're all mine.
Right.
Yes,
No one ever wrote a list counting her DVDs.
Exactly.
yes, because
Right.
everybody has a piece of the puzzle, not
Right.
the bigger picture.
yeah,
So
I
that's
get
why
it.
they wouldn't think to look.
And who knows what she wrote in that folder? Maybe she did say, it's a list of
Right.
my 17 DVDs, which are these, which are
Gotcha.
different lists than what he had. But
I started to think that about
'Cause
a
she's-
minute ago, but I think what you're
because
saying
it's been a
too,
year and she's been compiling stuff, going, okay, how could he have known this? Doing like what you're doing.
Yeah.
So
Right.
she could be rewriting
But
everything.
the fact of the matter still remains, she never found the Easter egg. So it was
Larry did.
almost pointless to create that list in that way.
But she did find it.
But she didn't find it.
But
She
it
didn't
was
need to.
found.
Yeah.
No, I know, but the reason that they made it those discs to begin with is so she would hopefully come across it.
No.
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 So that the person that came across it came across it.
You know,
But- so then it's
you're
a moot
forgetting one
point.
thing. The doctor
Right.
is never in peril. When they get zapped back into 1969, the doctor knows everything that's going to happen because it's
Right.
all written down in the notes. And all he does is he pushes the pieces out as they happened, not into how he plans it.
Right.
He doesn't plan it. He just pushes everything out the way it's been told to him.
So it was really more of like a Bad Wolf thing where it was just like, hey, pay attention to this, rather than it had a purpose that it was her
No,
DVD
it is.
set.
The purpose was to get Sally involved.
My brain got stuck on those are her DVDs for a reason to look at those DVDs.
no.
No, yeah.
It was her
That's what my
DVDs.
great-
It
that's-
was
Yeah.
her
Yeah.
DVDs to make her go, there's something
Right.
special about the DVDs that I own.
That it's
Right.
for me.
It's for my that
Right.
Easter egg is definitely for me.
Right.
And that's why she asked him, I need to watch all these videos.
Right. Okay. But you can see where
watch
my
them.
brain got stuck
Sure.
on that.
Right.
Now, along with that same one, is there a reality that happened where she did get hit by the rock and put in her notes
No,
duck,
because they're
or
not
she just
altering history.
always ducked?
She's always
She's
ducked.
always
She's
ducked.
always ducked.
Because that writing was always there.
Right.
Because she always gave the information to the doctor.
to
Well,
duck.
if you go into your high school physics books and look at the theory of relativity, this is the basic time principle of time is always flowing in the same direction, and that it's always happening the same way, and you just keep going around and round and round. So physics, yay!
I liked how Kathy at the beginning said that Sparrow and Nightingale is a great name. And so when they got together, they did the DVD store, Sparrow and Nightingale.
What is it that he says that there's more to life than just this? Like, you ever
Yeah.
think this is keeping you from other things?
Yes.
Right.
And she's like, we just own a shop. So there's definitely an inference that he's
Made
you know,
advances.
made advances, or maybe they've even had a thing, but she won't commit to it because of this.
She's obsessed with the
this,
doctor.
She's obsessed with tying this bow off. Like,
Yeah,
like
she needs
what's going on.
closure.
She needs closure.
She cannot move on
Right.
in her own personal life until she has closure
Right,
with
and
those
then
whole
this-
things.
so and then
Which
exact,
she thinks she's never going to get.
you know, where it's inferred that they do form a life together, and
Yes.
that's what makes this perfect little episode of television, whether or not you ever have seen or will see an episode of Doctor Who again. Right?
So now the question is, did the doctor go to the house to write that message because he was just happened to be at the house and happened to come across these angels? Or did he go because he got the packet and he was curious and looked through the packet?
Because of the packet.
But wait, but there is something that happened that zapped them back to 1969.
Yes, and we don't know what that is.
It might have been at
It
the
might
house.
be that. Went
It
to
was at
write
the
it.
house.
Yeah, they
'cause-
found the
He went
TARDIS
to
at the
write
house.
it.
Oh, that's right. They found
And
the
he
TARDIS
got
at the
zapped
house.
back.
That's right.
So
No, he didn't go to write it.
created.
No, because he wrote it in the past. He didn't write it in the present.
The TARDIS was lost within the last 2 years because they found it with the other cars at the house.
But did he go to investigate at the house? And that's the
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So Sally created this
Paradox almost.
paradox all the way from the beginning. I've
So
given him the thing.
people
that
were
it-
disappearing from the house.
he went to look-
and the doctor and Martha went to see why people were disappearing.
Yes.
And got zapped back to 1969.
Yes.
The doctor went, oh, and
Retrieve the paper.
No,
file.
it's the doctor. I think he would have looked at that as soon as they thought what they were going to go for.
And
You know,
set it up
right, with the whole hatching and all that kind of
with
stuff.
the bow and arrow.
I think he would have looked at it, and knowing the doctor, he would have memorized it.
yes.
I mean, that's really
yes,
quick.
but he doesn't know when it's going to happen.
Right, so he would have set up the whole DVD, being able to read it in the TARDIS, the protocol 712, so that, it's like to send back in time. Once he read all the paperwork, he put that already in motion.
But he had
I
to
can,
write
I
it.
can see him putting the hologram into motion, but he can't put anything else in motion
Right.
until he's in 1979.
Yeah, but it's like I got to put it on a DVD. He has to make a DVD player in there. So it's like
Yes, I
'cause that's all
completely agree
happening.
with that.
So it's like he knows it. He's got to make a DVD that has that information on it, and done the hologram at that point. I don't think he knew that this was what's going on when he went to go investigate the missing people.
I don't know. It could have
I
been
agree.
just like the Matrix thing of, now did you knock over the vase because I
Oh,
told you you were going to knock it
yeah.
over, or did you knock it over because of the
because that
situation?
information about the missing people and their cars was probably in the folder that she gave him before he even thought all this stuff. So he's like, oh, well, so when this happens, we got to go find out about. We got to go there.
That's what I just love. They just kind of really throw a lot of the time travel, predicting the future stuff, and it's just,
And I can hear the
Fun
doctor
written.
in my head when you said, is it like the Matrix where did you knock the vase over because I told you you did, or did it just happen? I can hear the doctor in my head going, what difference does it make? The vase is broken.
yeah, because he knows it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I wanted to be in the production to find out, do they want to go with bows and arrows? Are they going to carry hatchets? Are they going to carry,
Yes.
what
The bows
is,
and
what
arrows
do they
was a
need?
bit
It's like the bows are
odd.
very funny, but it just, stands out. So how odd did they want to go? It's like,
Because
what
it
are the
really
other
was
people
like-
that they talked about going, what else could they carry?
It really was like, we really need to say very quickly, this isn't the same doctor that you've seen. That this is a doctor who won't know what's going on. Because it's like, the doctor doesn't just go and kill creatures.
Yeah.
Or take taxis.
Taxi, yeah.
We don't even see the taxi driver, do we?
Nope.
Yeah.
Just Santa.
I really love.
It's a
Santa.
Oh yeah, right.
It would have been fun if he was wearing like a Robin Hood hat, something like that.
And just for me, I'm not the biggest fan of the little montage "Don't Blink" at the end. I think it's a little silly, but it's it's a show for little kids,
Yeah.
and that would just terrify
Yeah.
them for days.
Yes, it would terrify the little kids. That's right.
But it just breaks the narrative.
It's
all
already
over
a
the
different
world.
episode, so I'm okay with having a different ending.
But it's just
not.
so like break. It's like
The kid in me loved it.
Yeah,
I still
I enjoyed
like
it.
If this was true, we would all be dead, or
Yeah.
we would all be out of time, or whatever.
Maybe
I think
we
it
are.
Gives you, yes, I know. I think it gives you enough of an emotional reaction to warrant it being different.
And it extends the episode to real life. So every time you go out and
Yeah.
you see a gargoyle,
is true.
you see an angel, you see some kind of statue.
I was at my friend's house as that little montage was going on. She got up and turned the angel around in her house and made it face the wall. She's like, nope. Look over there.
And that is the last bit of genre trope from the horror
Yeah.
is that you think the monster's defeated,
Yeah.
but if you
Yes.
just look around the corner,
It's there.
he's still
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like the statue of the kid flying a kite. That's really creepy.
That is creepy.
I know.
At night.
If you ever have gone to Rome and seen some of those museums, the artistry in the faces and just in the marble, and they have one that's a woman lying down, and it looks like it's fabric and it's marble, but it's just done so well that you could see them coming to life. They are so lifelike that it gives you that extra little
Are you talking
creepiness.
about the Michelangelo ones? Or
There's a lot.
There were a
Oh, so
lot of
many.
different
Okay.
ones, not just.
Just like the presence, like they feel like they have a presence.
I guess what you said reminded me of like him saying that his subject was trapped inside that stone of marvel and he used his tools to release
Pygmalion,
them.
right?
Yeah. Blink is the third story to be adapted from something else. Stephen Moffat wrote a short story for the Doctor Who annual in 2006 called What I Did on My Christmas Holidays by Sally Sparrow. And in this version, she's 12 years old.
And it's that also is like that very Moffat that we come to find out, you know, Girl in the Fireplace, Amy Pond with her Raggedy Man.
There you go.
Like it's a theme that he comes back to.
Yeah.
So the other ones to be adapted are Human Nature, The Family of Blood, which is a story arc by Paul Cornell, and then also the story episode Dalek by is an audio drama, I believe, by Robert Sherman. All right, Blink. Who is this episode good for? Or this episode is good for who?
I think it's a great episode. I know there's a lot of controversy in the fans of Who, whether or not it would be a good one to introduce somebody. Because it is a Dr. Light. But I think, I would say yes, it's for the new viewer and everybody. Because I think a lot of people who don't want the Doctor Who to start, you know, not really interested in it, but could like a lot of the, you know, suspense kind of things, can get into this because it is so well written, such a good show that they could go, I do want to see more. So it's a good enticement for it. I am almost torn because they haven't watched a lot of other Doctor Who, and so they haven't earned this yet. Because it is such a good episode, and I was like, I don't want to start with the top, but
You don't deserve it.
right. You have to watch Fearer first. No. But I would say yes, you could introduce somebody to Doctor Who with this.
I agree. I originally was thinking this wouldn't be good for someone who hadn't seen anything yet, a new Who viewer, because there isn't enough Doctor. But watching it this last time, there's so many elements of the Doctor, and when he does show up, there's a lot in those scenes that he's in. I think it really gives you a good example of the way these shows are written, of the world, and how good it can be, and the type of thinking, the mindset it puts you in when you watch Doctor Who. And like I said, it's a great piece of television. So you coming to it as a new viewer, you're also in the mindset of Sally and Larry. So you're finding out about all this stuff just like they are, and you want to know more. And at the end of the episode, you probably would be wanting to know more just like Sally. So it would probably, this is a good one to lead you in.
I will also agree with Frank and Josh. I think it's a great episode to start somebody off with. Even though the Doctor isn't present, you get to see him a lot, you know, on the screens. Like, they get a lot of play out of that little bit of screen time. And the paradoxes with time travel, I think, are great. They're real thinkers. Like, this whole episode really inspires a viewer to think, like, what is happening? How did that happen? Which I think is always good, and hopefully would leave a new viewer wanting to see more. So I'm going to say this is good for everybody. If you haven't seen it yet, stop what you're doing. Go watch it.
So this episode, I think, was the second episode I watched because Eugene really had to entice me to start watching Doctor Who. So I think I watched all the episodes we were like unanimous on. And I just watched it this morning with a new Who viewer, and they loved it. I think I have showed it to several people as the first episode to watch, and they like it. And then I guess maybe on that whole behalf, like, they don't deserve it yet, because then they watch other episodes and they're like, oh, this is not like that one. But I think it's such a great episode. I've seen it like 8 times, maybe more. I don't like watching things over again either. So I just really, really love this episode. I thought it was written well. And I do love the idea of time travel, and not many people do it well. Actually, most people really mess up time travel and just use it as a device to create their storyline. And this was really well thought out, and it shows how well thought out time travel is with the Doctor. And that's why I always respect the writers. So yes, new Who viewer.
Who is this episode good for? This episode is good for everyone. Everyone needs to see this episode. So don't take my word for it. Watch it.
I would never show this episode to someone who doesn't know anything about Doctor Who. This is a brilliant, fantastic episode of Doctor Who. It's too different, and I would show it to a person soon after they got introduced, but I would only recommend this one to somebody who already knew what Doctor Who was. I am showing them something and I want them to continue to watch Doctor Who.
so
And so I'm going to show them an episode that I think is the quintessential Doctor Who episode. I do not think Blink is it.
And this will set up their expectation
Yes.
to be false.
And one thing that gets me as I was listening to all you guys talk is you were saying, well, we don't see the Doctor much or his companion. When we had Human Nature and the Family of Blood, I said I would show it to everybody because even though we don't get the Doctor, we still get David Tennant, we still get Martha, and everybody is constantly talking about the Doctor during that episode. And you guys didn't agree with me. And in this one, he's in it exponentially less, but you're okay with it.
I didn't say that. I'm not okay with him not being there a lot, but I just like the episode.
I love the episode. This is one of, this is one of my favorite episodes of all time. This is like the best written episode. You can watch this one and just marvel. They should teach this in a screenwriting class, because this must have been so difficult. But this is not something that I would show somebody that I wanted to turn on to Doctor Who. Maybe 5 or 6 episodes in. Again, you are starting them at the very, very top. The only place you can go is down.
It's true.
But then they'll always be chasing that high.
First one's free.
But
well, did your
Eugene hooked me with doing this, so I'm on a Doctor Who podcast after watching 2 really high episodes.
2.
What was the other?
The Girl in the Fireplace.
Hello. It's Girl in the Fireplace. I have an example. And this, I'm not comparing the show in any way, shape, or form to Doctor Who. I never, ever, ever watched Married with Children. Could have cared less. I knew nothing about it. And Frank, I think you had it on once, and it was an episode where the next door neighbors go on a plane, and the entire episode is the 2 of them flying on a plane. And Marcy is, I think, and she's like really nervous about flying, and the husband's trying to calm her down. And then they had their 2 wacky neighbors who were acting like idiots in the back of the plane. At the end of the episode, I really thought Married with Children was about Marcy and her husband, and the wacky sidekicks were their wacky next door neighbors. And I do remember finding out like a year later, wait, the show was the Wacky Neighbors? Ew. If I'm going to show somebody an episode of Doctor Who, the Doctor's going to be in it. The Doctor's going to have his companion in it. And there's going to be some interesting thing that shows you the Doctor and the companion. That's my first episode.
So who's this one for?
Casual.
And I had a hard time going between a new viewer and casual because there's a lot of people who will never watch Doctor Who. And if they wanted to understand what I like about it and why I'm watching, I'd show them this. Now I can see why you like it. Oh, that is written well. This is nice. She's on the show, Carrie? It's like, I know her from all this other stuff. It's like, you have real actors on this. Yes, there are.
When she meets the detective and she's all like rainy and wet and just that close up of her just staring into his eyes. Sorry, Kelsey. Wait, where am I?
You thought she was cute there too.
I did.
So it's fair.
You edit that.
It's fair.
It's okay. I wrote next to Billy Shipton. There's a heart. So
Billy.
And like Josh said, this is a good television show.
Yeah,
I think this is good for anybody to watch as a piece of art, as a piece of TV, as a piece of.
But is it a good
elevated.
Doctor Who show? That's where I kept going back and forth. And I know that's a big conversation that goes on in Doctor Who fans.
My turn. For me, this is one of my favorite episodes, but I agree with Frank that you need to work your way up to this. You can't.
They didn't earn it yet.
Yeah, they
That's
didn't
why I
earn
kind
it.
of don't want to show somebody.
Yeah. But then, if somebody's a fan of horror, this is one I would definitely show them cold because of the horror aspect.
Yes.
But then, you have to know your audience. I'm torn between new and casual, but leaning more toward the casual just because of the Doctor lightness of it. And you're not getting what Brian said is the show. You're not getting the show in this episode, even though this is a great, beautifully executed episode. Mm-hmm. Oh, this is also an episode that I don't want to watch too frequently so that it doesn't lose the impact when I do watch it.
I agree.
It's a treasured special occasion episode when I will put it in the DVD player and watch it on several screens. I'm just like, so you've heard our thoughts on who we would recommend Blink for. What would you do if you were to introduce somebody to Doctor Who with? Would you choose Blink and why or why not? Email us at whoknewpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. We will see you all next time when the future becomes the present.
You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook.
At The Universe Explodes.
All our episodes are engineered by our very own Auburn.
Find me at auburnbinkley.com.
You can find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcasts.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Who Knew Podcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
You can leave comments there or email us at
whoknewpodcast@gmail.com.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who.
The longest running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
thanks to Russell,
Sydney Newman.
Verity Lambert.
Ron Grainer.
And all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.
All right, blink.
Okay, ready?
We're gonna do blink.
Don't blink.
I really enjoyed this episode. That's it.
I know, right?
Just go watch
Sounds
it.
good. Just watch it.
Don't bother listening to this. Just go watch it.
Yeah,
When we get
we'll
there.
cut this out.
And considering even those statues that were across the street from the police station, was it? You tell me nobody on the street was looking at them?
They're high up.
It was raining.
Raining.
I'm just
People had umbrellas.
Okay.
No, were you talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I didn't think you were talking to me.
Let's start again.
You're talking to me?
There's nobody else here. Larry and Sally are the prototype for Amy and Rory, who are
Are
going to
they, though, or
become
is that
the
just what you
companion.
think?
Who are going to become the companion for a future Doctor.
I think it's
Is
pretty
that
obvious.
confirmed?
To me, it's incredibly obvious. They're the same exact type of.
Well, we can't go into it too much, but we'll.
I think it's
Going
certainly
what?
something
Well, because
that,
it's a spoilery type
Oh,
of thing.
yeah, no, okay. Well, for those of you who haven't caught up, who haven't gone past the Doctor Who episodes that we are actually reviewing, there are future companions that are a lot
Similar.
like these types of people of Sally and Larry.
It's like Riker and Troy are just like Decker and Ilea.
There we go.
I
Now
don't
we
know
got
that
the Star
second
Trek
reference.
reference. For those of us in the know.